Hi, let's get started discussing Chapter 1, the Sociological Perspective, or an Introduction to Sociology. In this chapter, we will discuss the sociological perspective, or the sociological imagination, which was coined by C. Wright Mills. We will discuss three main theories: conflict theory, symbolic interactionist, functionalism. We will also discuss feminist theory, but we'll mostly talk about those three main theories throughout our course. We will also discuss some key terms that you'll need to know, and the main theorist, or those persons who theorize or provided a framework for different types of theory. So one of the things I would like for you to think about is, what would happen if you had been switched at birth with another infant into another family? What if your accidental family had been born very poor or very rich? How different would that have been? Think about the type of schools that you would have attended, the type of health care you would have received, the possibility for your future careers. What if you had been born a different religion or been raised a different religion? How would this have affected your beliefs, your values, and attitudes? What if you had been born a different sex or different race? Thinking about race, religion, social class, sex, education has a major effect on who you are and the opportunities or lack of opportunities you have in life. Your social location is something very important, and we'll discuss this more deeply when we get into our chapter on stratification. But one of the things that we can see with where someone is located within society, it establishes or places limits or possibilities on a person's life. Sociology teaches us how to see society's influence on our lives and the lives of others. It helps us explain consequences of different social arrangements and just different patterns and trends that we see throughout society. Although society is always changing, because that's one of the reasons why our theorists, Marx, Weber, and Durkheim, started studying society, is because of the changes that was going on. We remain remarkably stable. We don't necessarily see where societies may kind of collapse, although we have seen that, but we still see the stability within our societies. So what is sociology? Sociology is an empirical discipline. Empirical refers to a careful observation and not just conjecture or opinion. This is the way that sociology differs from common sense. A lot of times when we talk about stuff in sociology, many people will say, oh, that's just common sense, or I kind of knew that already. As sociologists, we actually conduct empirical research. We look at observations, we conduct surveys, and we'll talk more in depth about that in Chapter 2. But we do gather this information and analyze the data to talk about the way people act within society and how society has an impact on us. Okay. One of the things with sociology is that it is the human behavior studied by specific research techniques and well-tested theories to explain social issues. Sociologists often do research on familiar topics, but we use particular tools in sociological theory to oftentimes guide our research, or we do what we consider theory testing. There are four main key terms within this chapter, but we will hear these key terms throughout our course. One is social interaction. Social interaction is the behavior between two or more people that is given meaning. Sociologists pay attention to the way interaction plays out, the way people react and change depending on the actions and reactions of others. Social structure. Organized patterns of social relationships and social institutions that constitute society. So we're looking at these social relationships, and we're going to be looking and examining social institutions. Those together bring about social structure. Social structure is an underlying regularities or patterns in the way people behave in their relationships with one another. Social structure is not a thing, but social forces that affect our lives. The groups we belong to, the generation in which you grew up, other social forces such as social roles, gender, race, ethnicity, and class affect people. A lot of times when we talk about social structure, people may think that, does this mean I belong to this group and I'm going to follow these patterns? Almost the idea where I don't really have any control over my life. We actually do, because we do have agency. And agency is when individuals deviate from patterns and they go against the odds. An example of social structure, or these patterns that sociologists see, would be something like a teenager who's from a working class family who decides to go to college. The odds of a working class teenager going to college are much lower than the odds of a middle class teenager going to college. This is based off of research. Sociologists have done a lot of research on those persons who attend college and who are able to complete college. Okay, but the working class teen is going to college despite the odds. The teenager is exhibiting their agency. Okay? Social institutions are established and organized systems of social behavior with a particular and recognized purpose. Some social institutions would include the family, religion, government, economy, and education. All are examples of social institutions. They have a particular purpose, and they have a particular purpose within our society. Social institutions influence individual behavior. Social change, basically what it sounds like, the way society changes over time. Sociologists are very interested in studying social change. Social life is dynamic. That means that it's constantly changing due to human actions. Sociologists understand that society is stable, but it also is constantly changing. So sociologists are historians to a certain extent. We can't understand something about our present without knowing something about our past. Don't worry, we'll revisit these terms again. Particularly social institutions, social structure, and social interaction throughout this course. C. Wright Mills coined the term sociological imagination. Sociological perspective or sociological imagination allows us to question what is going on in society instead of just taking things for granted. It is the ability to see societal patterns that influence individual and group life. Trying to understand how things are connected or what is below the surface. Understanding how the patterns in society influence the way we are. Sociologists look at historical and social context that shapes individuals and groups. Throughout this class, we're going to develop your own sociological imagination. One of the ways that C. Wright Mills started to develop or looking at this sociological imagination was that he explained that the task of sociology is to understand the relationship between individuals and the society in which they live. One of the things C. Wright Mills was to emphasize the differences between personal troubles and public issues. This is a distinct difference between individual experience and social structure. Organized patterns of social relationships and social institutions that come together to form or to constitute society. So one of the things that he talks about, or one of his known example, is going to be the idea of unemployment. It is a personal trouble for me as a person to be unemployed. I may start to blame myself, thinking if I went to a different college or majored in something different, or if I went to college, or maybe if I took a different job. That would be my personal trouble. Typically with personal troubles, they require an individual solution. However, if I step back and I look at unemployment within the structure of society, I will start to notice, wait a minute, I'm not the only person who's getting laid off from my job. I start to see that there are thousands of people being laid off, right? And I start to kind of look around and understand that maybe there's something going on within society. Does this mean that there are certain jobs that are being lost in certain industries? Is there an economic downturn occurring? Therefore, understanding the social structural conditions that influence people's lives. So it's basically the idea that I take a step back and I look at what's going on within society, look at the structures within the society, particularly with unemployment, looking at the way what industries are we seeing a lot of people losing their jobs in? Are we having an economic downturn? That allows me to understand That allows me to understand what's going on within society or to understand this public issue. And a public issue requires a societal change. One of the things that sociologists do, and Peter Berger actually coined this term, he calls the process debunking. That is the idea that we kind of take things for granted, but we look below the surface. As sociologists, we research this information. So one of the things that we may think within our society is that teenage pregnancy is on the rise. However, if you actually click on this, I'm not going to do it, but y'all can do it when you're going through the PowerPoints on your own. If you click on this is from Pew Research, it'll show that teenage pregnancy is actually decreasing. So debunking is the idea that we're doing research in order to understand everyday phenomenon that's occurring within our society, but to see whether or not this information is actually true. Just like when we talk about crime is increasing. When we get to our topic, when we get to our chapter 7, we're actually going to see where all aspects of crime, violent crime and property crime, are actually decreasing and have been decreasing since the 1980s. And that's actually through the Bureau of Justice. I believe that's what it's called. George Simmel is a sociologist, and one of the things he talked about was this idea of the role of the stranger. And he said that in order for a person to be able to see society or understand what's going on in their own society, they need to take a step back and actually become a stranger within that society. It's almost the idea of being able to, I'm not a part of this society. Maybe I know how to maneuver and function within the society, but I wasn't socialized, or I wasn't born and raised in the society. So if I take a step back, I can kind of see what's going on within the society.